Okay, here are a few aspects on the top of my head or placements in astrology that I find very interesting. One, Mercury square Neptune. So this one has a very distorted effect on the mind. This could be also opposite Neptune or conjunct. Basically, it makes anyone, regardless of the Mercury sign, process reality through a very, very different lens. It's very non-logical, and they can, it can lead to lots of different mental health disorders. It can be very, it's kind of like one of those things that maybe in the older world would have been seen as a spiritual gift, but today it can manifest as like schizophrenia, or it can manifest as like insane schizophrenia, or paranoia and anxiety. Just what happens also is that it can get difficult for this person. They have to work really, really hard at communication on the very base level, and they tend to be very, very good at processing like very high level, like psychic communication, but then or intuitive, abstract kind of thinking. When it comes to base level, it's like they sometimes the paranoia seeps in, or that they can kind of confuse their thoughts with other people's. So yeah, same with like Pisces. Mercury can be like that too. Next is Venus square Pluto. I always see this one. It's the same story for everyone who has it. They, basically are able to chart their advancement in their soul's maturity and kind of like, I guess, their growth as a human being, as a soul, through their romantic partners. Every time, same thing, always. They usually tend to start dating, whether it's men or women who have this, they tend to start dating very Plutonian, like low energy Pluto people, which could be criminals, just very dark people overall, people who don't care about them. It can actually be related to square Pluto, opposite Pluto. It can be related to self-hate. This is a self-hate aspect because Venus is actually representing self-love. A lot of people don't know that. So with any type of Venus, when you start to integrate it well, that's when you start to love yourself. And then that's why, people who have difficult Venus placements struggle with relationships. Like, let's say Venus in Virgo can be quite difficult because there's a perfectionism that is really about how the self looks, how the self sees the world, right? And it kind of gets projected externally, right? Or like Venus Saturn can also kind of have like a tough effect on self-love, which then kind of makes it difficult to move forward. So besides that, let me think. Obviously, Sun square Uranus people with Sun Uranus conjunction, like they're very rebellious people. They're people who are literally aliens, and their life is very kind of thrilling. It's very like a roller coaster. It's exciting, but there can be sometimes a lack of grounding, especially earlier in their life. They can be this tendency to want to be so rebellious. I feel like for a lot of them, it takes them a long time. Like there's lots of like little steps, like step one at this age, step two, step three. Like it takes them a while to figure out because they have a very, very unique life purpose. That's really like when you have a life purpose that's one of one, or maybe that's not even created yet. It's not even like, Uranus rules the future, right? Or rules inventions, right? So it really does take some patience. With these people aren't typically good with patience. And when you add Mercury with Uranus too, it can, like nearly everyone with that I've met has like a super fast mind. A lot of them have anxiety disorders. A lot of them have ADHD. Nearly every single person I've seen with Mercury conjunct Uranus has ADHD, and they're usually extremely brilliant also, right? And it's just like, how do you kind of calm those horses down, right? Like the insane processing speed. I'm doing this all on the go, by the way, so let me think of some other ones that aren't ones I talk about all the time. Like I was gonna say Capricorn, Scorpio, Moon. I think that let's think. Okay, so you have a lot of Jupiter square, like your Sun, square Moon, like, or opposite Sun, opposite Moon, opposite Venus, or not really Venus, more Mars. Like when you have Jupiter doing a lot of squares and oppositions, you can have what's called like Superman Superwoman syndrome, where you just put too much on your plate. Or if it's like, square opposite Mercury, you might overpromise things and just like be such a risk taker. You might just risk everything. You might be willing to risk everything, and then that's like what being overly Jupiterian is. It's like just feeling like you can walk into the casino and win automatically, And obviously you want to have some discretion. And a lot of times people with that overly Jupiterian energy, which can manifest in a lot of different ways, it could be a very strong Jupiter. It could be a lot of Sagittarius energy, a lot of ninth house energy. Like I said, a strong Jupiter could be, in Sagittarius and Cancer in a strong Jupiter house, 9th, 11th, etc., like on an angle. Even like, you know, like like me, I have the strongest Jupiter ever. Like, it's actually insane. It squares my sun and my Mercury. I'm a Pisces sun, which is co-ruled by Jupiter. Pisces, Mercury, Jupiter in Cancer exalted in the 11th house, and Moon in Sag. And there's more, and it's out of bounds Jupiter. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. Anyways, next, let's see. Moon. So Moon, what do I do? I feel like Moon square Pluto is really, really tough. Everyone, you know, it's Moon in square opposite Pluto is known as a Hades moon or conjunct Pluto. And there's a huge, there's so much I could say. I'm not gonna say everything right now, but there's really this, like, nearly everyone with that has gone through some type of crisis in their life, some type of like big, whether it's like you know, some actual, you know, trauma or something that, you know, psychological trauma. Either way, like everyone with this is trying to break a generational curse that's run in their family and their bloodline for a long time, and it's not easy. So they have to like grow up really, really fast, really, really young, and a lot of times they wear the brunt, or they kind of are like carrying like this very heavy energy from generation to generation. It's like you can think about a family bloodline, and like everyone is like making the same mistake, you know, this person, like they're each falling into like this type of you know, tendency. So this person is the breaker of that. And you know, so there's someone who's very, very aware of the psychological like darkness of life, which can lead to them being a little bit cynical, very, very psychologically intelligent. And you know, a lot of times there were power struggles. A lot of times love was given in so there's kind of like manipulation at home, or even like a controlling parent. And it sets up dynamics for them where they have to learn how to surrender, and they have to learn how to completely just like let go of what they're holding on to and find power within themselves, and not just as something that, you know, they're you know, that's the external version of power, control over other people, and basically like, you know, a fear-based type of power that you see so prevalent in the world, right? Which really comes from when you actually have some, you know, it's not coming from love, it's coming from fear. Not to say that you shouldn't try to be like high levels Pluto, which is also determination, obsession with what you're doing, passion, and to a certain level of success. I'm not saying don't do that. I'm just saying, you know, like that kind of sociopath CEO, like type of person. Let's think. Besides that, obviously, like, you know, when you have, let's see, did I do anything with Mars? Actually, let's talk about this. So people who have like a lot, like when you're missing an element, right? When you're missing water, it can be really, really difficult. You know, when I say missing water, I mean like with your sun, moon ascendant, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter also, right? The signs do matter, but in a different way for those other planets, right? And Saturn is something that you're trying to like, that you actually have restriction from that, but you're trying to become like a very strong in that energy, right? And the other ones are more generational, so they take more of an effect, like from a zoomed out perspective, like when you're with people from other generations. But anyways, so when you lack water, you can be someone who's very, who, it's not that you don't have emotions, it's just that you can lack emotional intelligence. You can lack an understanding for emotions or emotional cues, or you know, so it can be kind of awkward to like, in a sense where it's like you might not really feel like naturally what everyone's feeling, or like know how to kind of relate vulnerability, intimacy in these types of ways, right? Lacking earth, all in all, like I lack earth. I know a lot of people lack earth. It's groundedness and consistency. It's kind of difficult for you if you lack earth, you know. Obviously water is Scorpio, Pisces, Cancer, and earth is Virgo, Taurus, Capricorn. Lacking earth is very much like, you know, I think of people who have a high level of earth as being very consistent. Like it's like almost like a line like this, of like who they are day after day after day, right? They're a pretty similar version of themselves, right? And their routines are solid. They can kind of start something, like when they start something, they can kind of like over time finish it and not get bored, or not like like, I guess I'm not gonna say that, like, because Virgo, yeah. But I guess like earth is groundedness, earth is centeredness, earth is being able to do, even like being able to do things with your hands. Like people who lack earth usually just can't build an IKEA couch or something like that to save their life, right? I literally like can't. Like, I mean, it's like, you know, it's just so funny. And then you have like a Taurus moon who are just always incredible with their hands, or you know, and they love touching things and all that. So yeah, there's more to the missing earth. Now also, I should say, when you have too much water and you have too much earth, when you have too much water, you can be like emotionally controlling. You can, you know, not have, you can just like have, you can be too emotional in the sense of like where your whole life, everything is just like following emotions. Like you're not able to, you might like, you know, fall into like the low energy of certain signs, right? Where it might be playing victim, might be manipulative, might be using your emotional intelligence to, you know, it just might be like hard for you to progress in certain areas because you want to kind of just stay kind of, I don't know. It can just be like someone who's, yeah, you can just imagine. It's not necessarily bad. I know people who have a lot of water who are amazing, but it can also be someone who's just a crybaby or just too emotional. I don't know. Too emotional sounds like kind of gaslighty-y, but like, you know what I mean? Like someone who doesn't have like where they're not experiencing enough, they're kind of just like too much in that emotional realm. Too much earth can be someone who's too consistent, who's too predictable, who doesn't have enough like adventure in their life, who doesn't have enough vitality and just going with the flow and fun. And that's what, you know, and there's a lot more to too much earth, but yeah, just too much structure, too much rigidity, right? And then that could also be like not an open mind. So fire, you know, lacking fire is someone who lacks that impulse, that first impulse to do that thing, you know, that, you know, the fire is the beginning, it's the start, right? So it's like you need fire to start things, you need fire to have passions, you need fire is about laughing, about fun, about philosophy, about you know, experience. So if you lack fire, it's gonna be really hard for you to go out and find the things you're passionate about, to find the things that you you know, to kind of go out and do spontaneous things that can lead to amazing ends. But also, if you have too much fire, it could be the case that you you know, that you burn people around you, you know, that you take up all the attention, you kind of, people, your energy is just like, it literally burns. Like I've talked to people who have talked about people, or I've heard people talk about people who have too much fire, and like this person literally like burns everyone they're around. Like the fire is too much, you know, they're too fiery. It is overwhelming to be around them because they just have this intensity, almost sometimes this anger, and they're not calm enough. There's no serenity. They're just like all over the place, like very, very too much, right? And you know, too much of a good thing, too much of someone who always starts something and never finish it. Someone who is always talking but never listening, right? That kind of thing. Okay, finally, air. You know, obviously fire is Sagittarius, Leo, Aries. Air, Gemini, Aquarius, and Libra. So if you lack air, that's something on the like mentally that can be difficult, right? With communication, you know, when it comes to socializing, you might have issues with, you know, being in groups or just like how to kind of like see other people's perspectives and be fair in that type of way and be diplomatic, you know, and just a lot of it has to do with the mental capacity to kind of like have conversations and see different, to see different people's perspectives, like I just said, and kind of connect with people on that level, right? And also just like about learning, about just learning, your communication in general, as I've said many times, open-mindedness, and a lot more. Not enough air could be someone who, well, I just said that, yeah. So too much air could be someone who intellectualizes everything a lot, someone who might, depending on what they're lacking, lack the emotional undercurrent, and is always like looking at things from that more kind of intellectual point of view, like kind of like looking at looking at things from this above place, as opposed to being able to kind of go into them from a different place. And yeah, a lot of times with people who have too much air, it's not always bad, but a lot of times, like for me, I guess in my experience, what my instinct is to say that you have to look at what element they're missing. Because I've seen people who have a lot of air but no water, and that's really like, you really feel that lack of emotional, and it can be like lack of empathy, lack of emotional understanding. But then they're talking a lot, they're saying a lot, they're saying that they think they know all these things, but then they're missing on an important element, right? With Earth, it could be just lots of yapping, and no grounding to it. Anyways, that's 15 minutes. Sorry, I have to speed up the end of this video, but I hope you guys enjoy it. It's just a ramble. Let me know what you guys think. I wish I had longer, but Hope you guys enjoy this one, and tell me if I should make more videos like this and what you guys relate to from this video. All right, ciao.